The thing about my videos is the tones of my responses vary depending on the things that I respond to. I can be very calm and respond to the points and articulate the problems in a respectful manner. I can be sarcastic, playful, and make jokes about it. I can be pissed, angry, and just insult people and tell them to get chainsaw in half. So it all depends on you guys if you want me to joke around and make fun of you or actually make legitimate points. I also value the attitude of how you approach certain topics. If you decide to become inflammatory right away, then I will be inflammatory back. But this time, I just want to relax and calm down because the article is not inflammatory, it just says things that are wrong or misinformed.
I worry about the future of gaming.
I'm not really worried considering that I'm gonna get a Nintendo Switch and there are gonna be absolutely great games on it. So, why are you worried? Let's continue.
The beginning of the gaming industry was a modest one. It took decades for gamers to shrug off the stereotypes of being unsociable, basement-dwelling nerds. It took just as long for gaming to be recognized as a serious industry with far-reaching significance and potential for positive social impact.
Okay, first off, I really want to know the types of people who stereotype gamers as basement-dwelling nerds. Where and when does this stereotype even begin? I genuinely want to ask because I have this sinking feeling that the stereotype was done by a bunch of bullies with zero social links to actual nerds and ended by the time social media becomes popular. The reason is because the bullies can actually look at reality without the needs of interacting with the nerds, thanks to the internet, and even then, people still stereotype us a lot. The internet is one of the most amazing places in the world in which people can outright deny reality despite it being shown constantly to them. So please surprise me once again, internet, the same way you surprised me with the recent surge of Darwin Award contestants.
This success and growth comes on the back of passionate communities, one of the main aspects of gaming. At times, however, this passion can become a double-edged sword, with communities reacting harshly to unpopular behavior from companies and gaming media alike.
It's almost like these people are human beings who refuse to be treated horrendously by other human beings.
Death threats are commonly associated with severe backlash in the world of gaming. The issues could be as serious as anti-consumer business practices to unbelievably minor things, such as a game having subpar facial animations. Of course, neither side of the spectrum justifies ever sending death threats to anyone.
Actually, the other side does a great job at justifying death threats. The person drew a fan art in a way I didn't like. Except unlike the Mass Effect Andromeda example, we can verify the existence of these messages.
The passionate reactions to too many issues, big or small, has often led to gamers being labeled as entitled, a tag that many take offense with. Right or wrong, gamers have always been quick to voice their displeasure, and it is something that comes with the territory when you work in the industry, be it as a publisher, game dev, or a journalist.
That is absolutely true. Carry on.
Equally right or wrong, the passion of gamers has been what has kept gaming alive and pushed it to the dizzying heights that it currently occupies. It is this passion that makes working in the gaming industry both incredible but also daunting. Despite this passion and how far we've come, I can't help but to be worried about the future of gaming.
Okay, you've made valid points. Now, please illustrate to me why you have a problem with the future of gaming.
The world at large has descended into a war of outrage. It brings in the views, it fortifies the positions people take on issues, and it dictates narratives entirely. Long before the world dived headfirst into a culture of outrage, gamers had already turned it into a lifestyle. It's no surprise Gamergate and the rise of the alt-right began in gaming.
Wait, did you actually look at the video from NBC and actually took it seriously? There is something wrong when you agree with the video that is not only universally disliked but has so many points that are just downright wrong. I will leave my reply to that video in the description.
2017 perfectly illustrated the outrage and passion that resides in gaming. Electronic Arts was forced to back down after the severe backlash around Star Wars Battlefront 2. Bungie, the studio behind the train wreck that is Destiny 2, continues to receive a barrage of anger and disappointment from its player base. Riot Games, the creator of League of Legends, is constantly kept somewhat honest by its massive community whether they step out of the line.
And every single one of those cases are perfectly valid and justified anger towards a bunch of companies who decided to be greedy and hiding behind a facade of sense of pride and accomplishment.
On the face of it, you would be hard-pressed to argue against the idea that gamers are ready to call out bad industry practices or wrongdoings. However, what if all the outrage and anger is merely a facade? Gamers make a lot of noise to sound important and look like they care, but what if underneath it all, nothing really changes? What if it's all an act?
Wait. So, gamers just pretend that they're being outraged? For what? I don't get it. What's the point of pretending to be outraged towards bad business practices in video games done by greedy publishers?
EA faced intense backlash following its debacle around Battlefront 2, arguably the worst the gaming company has faced in recent years. The anger was so widespread, the mainstream media publications were reporting on it, and one of EA's responses on Reddit shattered the record for the most downvotes. Despite all of this, Battlefront 2 still performed well sales-wise, being the most downloaded game on the PSN store in December.
Oh, okay, so gamers are outraged towards EA's Battlefront 2 while still buying Battlefront 2? That is indeed quite hypocritical, but your own article that you cited explained that there are gamers who are not aware of the controversy, there are those who bought it because of The Last Jedi, which was getting popular at the time, and most importantly, the game is being heavily discounted because some people think the single player is at least worth playing for 20 or 30 bucks. The backlash was concerning the multiplayer portion of the game, not the single player, which you can play anytime without those loot boxes crap, so you are missing a lot of nuance to this entire conversation. Also, you are judging what gamers prefer based on the best-selling games on the PS Store, which isn't the only digital distribution platform out there, let alone the most popular. Steam stopped selling games in December, and also right now, as far as I checked, is PUBG. Yes, I know that Battlefront 2 is in origin, but my point is, characterizing the attitude of the gaming community solely based on the people who buy games on a specific distribution platform is inaccurate, even for Steam. What you consider a facade here is merely you not understanding the full context of the situation and what gamers actually think. But you are not done, so carry on.
Looking more broadly, microtransactions continue to be implemented at an increasingly aggressive pace. One only needs to look at games such as NBA 2K18 and FIFA 18 to see how this manifests itself. As microtransactions continue to grow, single-player games struggle to stay financially relevant, with many studios and publishers seemingly veering away from them.
That is also not true. Single-player games are still capable of being financially relevant. They are incapable of being financially sustainable because they have no source of sustainable income other than the release of their own games. And since there are more and more games being released every year, people are going to move on to other single-player games after they finished it. Some single-player games can even sustain itself with the release of additional DLC content. Games with microtransactions, on the other hand, can sustain itself because players are going to buy game credits or loot boxes as time went on. To say that many studios and publishers stay away from single-player is also not true because the only game publishers that are not interested in single-player are EA and Activision, and even then, that doesn't stop them from publishing single-player games. Nintendo is still making single-player games, Square Enix still publishes single-player games, most indie game devs still make single-player games, hell, Divinity Original Sin 2 sales are still pretty strong despite it being released last year. As you say, EA Sport games have tons and tons of microtransactions and people still buy them. The reason for that is because they appeal to a very different subset of gaming demographics, one that uses gaming merely as a FIFA machine rather than a more serious gaming platform for more serious games. I have another video for that details about this phenomenon of the news outlets telling people that single-player games are dying. It's wrong back then and it's wrong right now.
In the past, we used to own all of our games via physical copies, and now we've become okay with the convenience of digital copies at the expense of outright ownership. Mobile games used to be viewed with contempt due to the constant paywalls and microtransactions-heavy approach, and yet nowadays, we praise fully priced AAA games that employ the same habits as long as it's purely cosmetic.
Because mobile games tend to be free, while AAA games tend to be fully priced. Mobile games tend to hold off some of their content in paywalls. AAA games at least give you the full single-player campaign. I think you missed that part, either because of oversight or because you deliberately did it, but I don't want to assume too much malice here.
For a group constantly labeled as entitled, gamers don't seem to ask for very much anymore. They will ask for a lot with words, but when you read their actions and how the content of their wallets is being spent, they'll take whatever they're given. We've decided to settle that, and that makes for a very worrying trend.
This is the sort of conclusion that can only be reached if you miss so many important details that add more and more nuance to the conversation. If you reached this video and still missed those important details, I highly recommend you to rewind this time, have your notes ready, and pay attention. Or let me make this simple for you. 1. The sales chart of the PlayStation Store only represents gamers who play on the PS4. It cannot be used as an accurate measure to represent all gamers. 2. Single-player games are still capable of being financially relevant. They're just not capable of being financially sustainable, the same way nobody goes to the theaters to see movies being released 2 years ago. And 3. Making conclusions about the entirety of gamers while missing all of these important details prove that the problem is not the gaming community, the problem is you.
We seem hell-bent on repeating the same mistakes year after year, only to complain afterwards that the developers don't listen to fans anymore. Why would you listen to people who can't even commit to their own ideology and principles for more than a couple of weeks?
While that is a valid question, you are missing too many nuance to even form the conclusion that gamers cannot commit to their own ideology and principles in a matter of weeks. To this day, I still haven't bought Battlefront 2 and I never will. In fact, I saw Battlefront 2 in the stores one day as a rental with no physical copy available for purchase, which me and my brother laughed at in marvelous display. It is true that certain people cannot commit to their own ideology and principles, but this is definitely not the case, especially when your standards of gamers are merely those who buy games to the PS4.
Gamers will say EA were taught a lesson, but really, the only thing they learned is that gamers have no backbone or long-term commitment to their goals.
Again, you are missing way too many nuance and context to even form that conclusion. Please take a look back at these controversies and actually listen to what the players are saying. It's ironic for a site called Critical Hit, you do read the surface a lot.
On the other side of this, when a company decides to be innovative and different, they are beaten over the head for it. Nintendo comes with an incredible concept for kids titled Nintendo Labo, and the community crucifies them for not meeting expectations that they falsely created on their own.
Nintendo Labo. Incredible. It's a set of freaking cardboard boxes that are pretty freaking fragile. The only time that is acceptable is if they can supplant gamers with sexboard boxes. Also, what do you mean as expectations that they falsely created on their own? What kind of expectations? What do people expect from Nintendo? What expectations that gamers have that Nintendo for some reason did not meet? I am personally sold with the Switch regardless of that cardboard box thing they have because they actually have some great gaming libraries. So again, what expectations? And how is it contradictory to the last point you made? Article fully defines it, so let's carry on.
One could argue that gaming in 2017-18 is experiencing its most amazing year with some incredible games coming out or still to be launched. The growth of the gaming as an industry, especially on the esports side, has been tremendous and bodes well for the future. But underneath the flashy numbers and optimism, one could also argue that gaming is slowly letting go of what made it beautiful to begin with.
No, you can't. Not at least in the way you presented them.
Why would a company invest money and time into making a Witcher when you could spend half the amount of resources and release a Destiny 2 and watch your coffers fill up for years after it's launched?
Because publishers are greedy SOBs who see video games as a way to generate sustainable income instead of something genuinely fun and enjoyable. And there's no guarantee that the sustainable income model would work. Multiplayer games are never guaranteed to live forever, which is why you constantly hear multiplayer servers being shut down. Unless they have LAN or dedicated servers or even single player with bots, nobody's going to play your multiplayer games. That's why single player games are still pretty much dominating everyone's top 10 last year. I have never heard Destiny 2 being in anyone's top 10 best games, and Divinity Original Sin 2 is surprisingly still kicking on that top sellers list.
When is the incentive for studios and developers to listen to the gaming community when the community forgets what it was angry about after a few weeks?
If you're basing all of that in how players purchase Battlefront 2 on PSN while you yourself explain that it could come from multiple other factors, I can safely conclude that this writer or this site has a severe short-term memory loss. That or they didn't even read the citations or sources that literally come from their own website. EA is no longer the game publisher in the market. There are going to be a significantly larger number of people that buy games from other venues, especially in other platforms that are bigger than the PS4.
Gaming was built on the passion of the community, but it seems that the passion has lost its sense of purpose or direction, or maybe both. All the recent scandals surrounding anti-consumer practices and how the gaming community has seemingly swept them under the rug makes them for a solemn look at the future of gaming. The AAA industry is in no way doomed. That will be unnecessary hyperbole, but at some point, we will need to confront the direction it is heading and a line in the sand will need to be drawn. We shouldn't be waiting decades for a new negative stereotype to form before we do what we can to cast it off.
Oh, we're not saying that the AAA gaming industry is doomed at all. No. We are saying that they no longer produce excellent games that people will remember. In another video where I respond to Downward Thrust, he rightfully pointed out that 2017 has been a horrendous year for AAA. Not only talking about Destiny 2 and Battlefront 2, but also For Honor, Mass Effect Andromeda, and Shadow of War. However, AAA is more than just the Western publishers. We still have Nintendo absolutely kicking ass, and Atlus is a relatively big company with one hell of a successful franchise. Capcom also produced an excellent Resident Evil game. It's not that AAA games are dying. There are still going to be people who buy these sorts of games with microtransactions and horrendous business practices. There are still going to be people who buy games from EA, Activision, or Ubisoft. However, they're not the only big AAA game publishers in this world. If gamers continue to buy games from them, I bet you that there are going to be tons and tons more gamers who buy games from other companies as well. Those that actually do not support the business practices from these developers and actually kept to their word. So in conclusion, this article jumped into conclusions too early to actually provide legitimate arguments in why we should be worried about the future of gaming.
I myself am not worried. I am very enthusiastic about the future of gaming, even if big companies literally sell cardboard boxes. Sure, AAA publishers are going to be absolute stinkers, but at this moment, I would rather purchase games from other companies that actually produce legitimately good games. After all, my best games in 2017 are Japanese AAA games, indie games, or AA games. So I'm looking forward to 2018 for more of those stuff. Or maybe if AAA improved, they can actually produce good games for once. I don't know. We'll see.